Hi friends, I am here today to share with you 3 dinners that I've made over the past couple of weeks. The first one is an oldie. This was something I made when I was a young bride in our first home, and it was actually one of my husband's favorite meals, and I hadn't made it for a long time. And it's so funny because it really made me think about the olden days before the internet, and I'm anxious and curious to see what all of you have to say, because where did you find recipes? I remember my mom used to rip them out of magazines, and the newspaper would have recipes. They'd be all kind of in different places, but I remember I was so excited. We used to get this craft magazine seasonally, so we got it 4 times a year, and there would be coupons in there. They'd be talking about new products, and there would be lots and lots of recipes using some of their products. And this was a recipe that I found in one of those magazines many, many years ago. It is called chicken bruschetta. The recipe will be linked down below. It calls for 1.5 pounds of skinless, boneless chicken breast. I had 2 out, but I actually ended up using a 3rd. And I like to use a larger pan. I like the chicken to be single layer. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and mix up the toppings. So you're going to need a package of stovetop, 14.5 ounce can of diced tomatoes, undrained, you keep the juices, and then you need 2 cloves of garlic. So I am used to using the jarred stuff. So I went ahead and I mixed up the stovetop with the tomatoes, and I find the 1/2 cup of water is too much. So I'm only adding 1/4 cup, and I found it was perfect. So there is my chicken in a nice single layer. I am going to season it a little bit because I want a little bit of flavor on there. So I am using some basil. I am also using some pepper, and I'm not going to put any salt because there is a lot of salt in the stovetop. And then you're using 1 cup of the Kraft shredded mozzarella cheese. I'm just using up some pepper jack and old cheddar that I had in the fridge already shredded. And now you're going to put your mixture on top. Now, one of the things that I found when I made this many, many years ago is I would make it in a smaller dish, and I found that the chicken was kind of piled up on top and it was a little bit dry and not as flavorful. So I find if you spread it out in an even layer, it has a nicer ratio to the chicken with the bruschetta on top. And then this goes into a 400-degree oven for 30 minutes. And I'm just kind of cleaning some things out. So I had some chicken broth in my fridge. I'm just going to use that in my rice to give it a little bit more flavor. And then I have an open bag of these organic peas. These are frozen, field fresh. They taste absolutely amazing. And I always like to have some kind of vegetable in my freezer in case I don't have anything fresh. So here is what it looks like after the 30 minutes. I love this. It smells absolutely amazing. There's my peas ready to go. I just put a little bit of butter and pepper, and same with the rice. So this is a very kind of a simple casserole. I find it goes a long way too. And there it is. This is how I just wanted to present it on a nice white plate. There is the chicken bruschetta bake. There is my rice. I just put a little bit of parsley in it, and there are my peas. This was a really delicious dinner. Really enjoyed this dinner. I did it a little bit different. I found before, like, I always used to leave the chicken a little bit chunkier. I find cutting it a lot smaller. Obviously, when you're looking at old recipes and the sizes are changing for everything. So the stovetop box was a little bit smaller, but it still worked out fine. I really, really enjoyed it. I found it was just a very different flavor. And then just to clean out some things from my pantry and my freezer, just using the chicken broth to give the rice a little bit of extra flavor, and just using frozen green beans. It was just a perfect dinner, and I really, really enjoyed it. Now, the second dinner is definitely something I have shared with you before, but I know there's always new people, subscribing or looking for recipes too. And this is a little bit more of a sentimental one. This is something that my mom used to make whenever I lived at home and was just a young girl. This recipe is from a Company's Coming cookbook. It is from the creator Jean Perret. She was actually a caterer, and she just passed away in December, and she had over 200 of these Company's Coming cookbooks, very popular in Canada. And this was something my mom used to make, sweet and sour sausages. I borrowed this cookbook once, and I don't think she ever asked for it back. And as you can see, this was something I would make when the kids were little, and, coloring time, and it happened to kind of move over to the cookbook. So it's something that I treasure. So it says small pork sausages. I just used the regular breakfast sausages. I just bought these at Walmart. So I'm going to go ahead and fry them up and then just follow the recipe. So I am using my little Corral casserole dish. I think this was like a wedding gift, but this is actually what I used to make the chicken bruschetta in. And I find it works a lot better with a flatter pan. So anyways, I use scissors. I have a knife set, J.A. Henkel's. I bought it on sale at Canadian Tire. Actually, it was a Christmas gift, and it came with a really good set of scissors, and I love using scissors to save time. So I just take my fork and I cut each of the sausages into 3 or 4 pieces, and I'm going to do the same thing because it calls for a 14-ounce can of sliced peaches. I did drain them, so I'm just going to go ahead and take my scissors and then cut the peaches into halves. You could probably keep the peaches, whole if you wanted to, or you could even use frozen peaches if you had them. I think I have a bag, but I usually have a can of peaches in my pantry, and then you're also going to use Heinz chili sauce. This was always a staple. My mom made a lot of recipes using this. So you are going to use 1 cup of this chili sauce, and I'm just going to use my spatula. And then it also calls for half a cup of ketchup. Now it did call for 3/4 of a cup of granulated sugar. I didn't add that much. I think I went with just under a half, but I think honestly you could skip the sugar because the ketchup and then the peaches and the sweetness from this. And this was also my introduction to dehydrated onion flakes. My mom was one. She always followed a recipe, and she always had a package in the pantry specifically for this recipe, but it's something that I buy all the time at Costco. I absolutely love them. And then you're also going to add 1 teaspoon of curry powder. I like the curry. I find it gives us a lot of flavor. So all you're going to do is mix this all up and then put it in a 350-degree oven for 30 minutes. And then you're just going to stir and continue to bake for another 15 to 20 minutes. Now I have my rice all cooked. It's just settling down. And this is something that I learned from HelloFresh. I get it quite often if I have a good deal on it. So you take 1 tablespoon of olive oil, and then I just added 2 to 4 tablespoons of water, depending on how much broccoli you're going to use. And then you just kind of bring that to a boil. And then I have the bag of broccoli. I just find this is so easy. There was a couple of pieces that were a little bit bigger, so I'm just going to cut them down. And then all you're going to do is just kind of cook this for 4 to 5 minutes. I find it's just perfect. It gives the broccoli like that perfect finish. I find it's not soggy, but it's not overly crunchy, and I just absolutely love it. So this is one of the things that I have learned from my HelloFresh dinner. So here is the finished product. I just like to put it on top of the rice, and then you can see the broccoli. It has that beautiful green color. You can see all of the nutrients and everything are in here. And this is definitely one of my favorite meals. I love it. It brings back so many memories for me. I love that recipe. I remember coming home and I always was excited because every night except for Fridays, we had meat, potatoes, and a vegetable. So when we had a dinner like that, it was always exciting, and my mom never served vegetables with it, and I had some broccoli, and I love the way that it cooks, and that's something that I learned from HelloFresh. Very, very simple, but I just love how the broccoli stays nice and green. It's not mushy, it's not like overly crunchy. It has a little bit of crispness to it, and I find it's really easy to just kind of whip it up. It only takes a few minutes, and I felt like it kind of brought the sweet and sour sausages together. And now the last dinner I'm going to share with you is something that I have not made before, and it is a 1-pan dinner. This is called Pot Cheeseburger Pasta. I'm always looking for 1-pot dinners, and I guess whenever I opened up Google, this recipe was just sitting there. It's from Budget Bites, and I thought it looked really, really good, so I will link it down below. And I've made a few recipes from this website, and I think they've all been really good. So I'm just dicing up my onion and cutting it a little bit smaller than what I did originally. And then I'm just going to take my frying pan here. I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of olive oil, and then I'm going to add my onion to this. Now, the recipe did call for half a pound of ground beef. To me, half a pound of ground beef is definitely not enough. I added the full pound. So I had bought this on sale, and then I break it down into 1-pound portions, and it was still a little bit frozen. So I just used my handy dandy little ground beef chopper here. This is great for so many things, but actually one of you sent this to me many years ago, and I use it all of the time, but I specifically love to use it to break up ground beef that's just a little bit frozen still. So there it is, all browned and cooked up, and I'm just going to go ahead and add 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour, and it tells you to cook it for 1 minute. It says the flour is going to begin to coat the bottom of the skillet, but mine just worked its way in with the ground beef and onion. So anyways, the recipe did call for 1 8-ounce can of tomato sauce. Now, as always, things are always changing in size, so my tomato sauce was just a little under 8 ounces. So I put it in the 1 cup and topped it up to get the full 8 ounces, because we know it's important to have that proper liquid ratio whenever you're cooking pasta. And then I'm also going to add 2 cups of beef broth, and then I'm just going to work this in, just kind of stir it a little bit, just trying to get the liquid incorporated in with the flours. And then it called for 1/2 pound of pasta shells uncooked. I didn't have like the little shells, so I just weighed out macaroni, because that's what I have. I usually have macaroni, so I just use my little kitchen scale, and then I'm just kind of working the macaroni in, making sure that everything is covered. And then you're just supposed to bring it to a boil. And then once it reaches a boil, you're supposed to just kind of make sure that nothing is sticking to the bottom, but this is a non-stick pan. And then you're supposed to cover it, but I don't have a lid for this, and I just left it alone. And honestly, it didn't take long to cook up. It was exactly the 10 minutes. So I also have 4 ounces of cheddar cheese shredded. I found this was the perfect amount. I wouldn't have wanted any more, and I think any less wouldn't have given you that cheesiness. Now, it also called for 2 tablespoons of hot dog relish. Unfortunately, because it's not barbecue season, I don't normally have a backup. I normally have a backup because it's the winter time. I didn't. So I didn't have quite the 2 tablespoons, but this is what gives it a little bit of the kick, a little bit of the sweetness, and kind of makes it like the cheeseburger, because you have the ground beef, you have the cheese, you have the onions, and then you have the relish. So that's really all it is. I just put it on a plate. I put a little bit of green onion on the top, and we just had it with a little bit of salad. This was delicious, and it was so easy to make. I would definitely make this again, and again. We loved it. This was amazing. I absolutely loved it. I wish I would have had a little bit more of the relish. I found that you didn't taste it that much, but my goodness, Andrew loved it. He was spooning it up, eating it. I found it was just something that was very different, and I think the tomato sauce really gave it a lot of flavor with the beef broth. And I would definitely go with the 1 pound. The 1/2 pound of ground beef, you would have been eating all pasta. So I'm definitely glad that I went with the 1 pound, and I really like it. It was just the perfect amount of cheese. It was filling, it was hearty, and best of all, it was in 1 pan. So I hope that you enjoyed these dinners. I know sometimes cooking is something that we have to do. I really want to enjoy cooking. I like to clean out my fridge and freezer. But I think too, as I get older and things change over the years, I like to make recipes every once in a while too that bring back a lot of happy memories from many, many years ago. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up and let me know, where did you guys used to find all of your recipes before the internet? I can't wait to hear. So thanks for watching, everybody. Have an absolutely amazing day, and I will talk to you all soon. Bye.